Yes, guys, I'm absolutely delighted to bring back the 3 More Points podcast for a brand new season on GBFC. Loads of new stuff coming your way on the channel recently. In today's first episode back for the new season, we're going to talk about expectations, Enzo Maresca's start, and who is Chelsea's answer, potentially, to be our version of Mohamed Salah. We've got a regular co-host back on the channel. Let's get into it. About a year ago, we started the 3 More Points podcast on a regular basis with my good friend Harry. He lived in Bali, now he doesn't, but he's on the same time zone as me. So I've decided that I was going to give him a little bell. I was going to beg him to come back on because I want a co-host. I don't just want to sit here always by myself talking. I look at the romance of Josh Aveste and Joey Knight and I'm like, I want a bit of that in my life. And there was only one man for me, and his name is Harry, or as his YouTube channel goes, a guy called Henry. Harrison, mate. I'm going to introduce you in a second because I'm just going to tell everybody what they've got in store today. But just give us a smile so that we can throw you on the face so that everyone knows you do exist.
Hello,
there
everyone.
He is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
This is Harry.
I'm
Today
back.
we're going to go through the omission of Cole Palmer from the Conference League squad. Does that mean that Chelsea don't want to win the Conference League? I'm seeing some very, very dry takes on this. Going to talk about expectations, I guess, for the season. Bringing the pod back, bringing Harry back in. We're 3 matches into the new season. Taking a little look at where we were this time last year under Pochettino. Comparing it to now. I want to talk a bit about Sterling to Arsenal. What Harry thinks about that. What I think about that. And that should pretty much take us through the first episode to get back into the swing of things. But Harry, mate, where have you been? What have you been up to? And welcome back to GBFC.
Mate, it's fantastic to be back on the channel. I always love doing the podcast, but we did struggle for consistency last time. But I think this time's going to be different. I've got a strong feeling. I'm in Australia now, in Melbourne. I've moved over here. I decided that I didn't move because I met a girl. I moved because I need to enhance my career prospects. That's the line I'm going with. So yeah, but no, I'm in Melbourne. You know nothing, George. I'm definitely enjoying being in Melbourne. It's a good vibe. It's quite similar to home, to be honest, but I feel like this is a city that we don't really have in the UK. So I'm enjoying that aspect of it. It's truly terrible in terms of football for the time zones, but I'm managing to keep up with Chelsea regardless. And yeah, I've launched my own YouTube channel. Well, relaunched about 5 years ago. I had a boxing channel. So I've relaunched a guy called Henry. That's my boxing channel. So we're doing tactical analysis and breakdowns. We're sort of reacting to different interviews and stuff. So I thought, you know what? I'll leave the football to George. I'm going to do my boxing stuff. So yeah, if anyone likes boxing, get involved.
And there's also a great series on that channel that I absolutely love. And I really admire the uniqueness of the idea, to be honest. Harry is doing 6 things that we learn. And he was kind enough to ask me if I minded. And I was like, bro, of course, it's boxing. I want to learn 6 things from every fight because I don't even know how to clench my fist, let alone throw a punch. So you can go and expect that on Harry's channel. The link is in the description.
It makes me feel.
But I guess today.
It makes me feel extremely unoriginal, but it's such a good format. I was like, do you know what? The people love it. So we have to bring it to boxing because boxing is lagging behind when it comes to content.
Exactly. That's why I've started making tennis videos now too, because tennis is just lagging in general. People don't even watch the Grand Slams, as people tell me. But anyway, 3 More Points is here. And we've started off with 3 points once. We've had 3 games, so I think this is a great time to kind of look at those 3 games. And what do you think is different about this season from the start that we had under Pochettino, from what you can see, like, top line?
Well, there's definitely some similarities because obviously it's a new manager that's come in and you kind of go through that phase where you're not really sure what's going on in terms of the system and tactics. When POCH came in, we all seen what he'd done at other clubs and it felt like from preseason there was a clear 4-2-3-1 structure, the way he was going to play, the sort of personnel he wanted in each position. But to be honest with you, that football didn't feel like it was really like an advanced, like a modern football. It felt like it was something that would work, but only to a certain degree. I think the thing that excites me so far about Maresca is that he's got this very clear tactical system that he's trying to play. And it's so much easier to gauge the success of what's happening when you know what we're trying to do. I think that was the big thing under Poch. It was like, you never could quite tell if it was the tactics that were naive, if it was the players that weren't doing well in those tactics, or if they weren't playing properly. But now every single player has a role, has a bar to gauge them against, and like we have different profiles of player for each position now. I think it's really exciting in that sense. In terms of what's different with the players, I mean, we've added new personnel in again, so that's obviously different. And I think that I mean, obviously the manager is also unproven. There's actually a lot. There's a lot that's different. It's the same. Can you hear that drilling, by the way?
Yeah, but it's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay, shit. Sorry about that. It's the same situation, but the circumstances feel very different. It's a different recipe this time that we're going with, and it feels more. It just feels more modern and up to date. I don't know if that's unfair to say, but that's kind of the feeling I've got. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think at this point in time, there's different ways that we can like stretch this conversation, in the sense of, I said it in my video that I posted yesterday. This is the year for me where we cannot accept mediocrity. I think 3 years in, 3 different managers to start the season, flipping 6 managers total. It's at a point now where if we don't get Champions League this year, it kind of makes the whole last couple of years of being trophyless seem like it's been a bit pointless. And when you look at the fact that we have now got the costliest squad in the world, I'm like, come on. Even 4th, I know it's not really the Chelsea standards. It shouldn't be the Chelsea standards. But this year for me, as much as I want to win a trophy, 4th will kind of, I hate that I'm saying this, it will kind of feel like a trophy for us as a club to be able to actually like look at where we've been for the last 2 years and see Champions League football again as a cornerstone to say that we're making progress and at least going in the right direction. I think we've actually got the squad to do that. And I think Maresca, I think it's just going to be one of those things where, a bit like Antonio Conte when he came in, and as much as it's not necessarily as drastic of a system as what Conte tried to implement at Chelsea, when we got battered at Arsenal, the game after that, we went on that ridiculous winning run and then inevitably won the Premier League. It's not as easy now to come into a club like Chelsea and change that kind of style, that dramatically. I think Maresca's working here with the squad of players last season. That is, as much as we made a lot of new signings in terms of like the improvements to the first team squad, there's not that many differences in the starting 11. But I think the players that we've got now suit this style way more than they ever suited Pochettino's style. So I think as a start point, 3 games in, I think we're better off.
Well, it would be really interesting to go and compare the starting lineups from the first game of last season to the first game of this season, because I'm thinking about it, and Fofana wasn't available, so that's one player. I think Sanchez did start in goal. I think that Gusto didn't. Well, Gusto didn't start the season because James was fit that game.
I've got it up right now.
Yeah,
so
go on then. So let's compare.
It's a very different team.
Right.
To be fair,
that's the crazy thing about our team.
So different.
I thought it might be
mad.
That's the crazy thing about this team. Like, I don't think there's a team in world football that has changed its personnel more since 2021 than us. Because look at that Champions League winning side. It's insane.
This is why it's so great that we're doing the pod again, because I would just take this idea that I've got that we're not that much different to last season, but with a few players, and I'd roll with that in a video, and everyone would be like, Benson, have you even looked at the starting 11 against Liverpool?
You need someone smarter than you that can challenge you, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, thanks, dickhead. Appreciate that. We started last year with a 3-4-2-1. Sanchez was still the goalkeeper. He's done very well to still be there. Disasi, Silva, Colwill, Reece James right back, Enzo Fernandez, Conor Gallagher, your boy in the middle, Ben Chilwell, Sterling, Chukwuemeka, and Nicholas Jackson. That's actually insane how we've only really now, we've got 4 players there. That would be starters right now for us: Sanchez, Colwill, Fernandez, and Jackson.
And that's why it's so hard to compare.
But not really.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to compare, because not only are the styles of the managers different, but the players they're using are different. We every season that these owners have been there, the squad has changed dramatically, and the manager has changed. So this is, I know you said to me before, that 4th place would feel like a trophy, but to be honest with you, and we can't accept mediocrity and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest with you, we have started again this season. Like, every season we start again, essentially from zero. Although I'd say because we've built this nice squad now, we've added to it, we've removed the deadwood, we've added to it. And hopefully now we've got rid of all the deadwood. We'll talk about Raheem Sterling later. But, I feel like the squad, you're right, is in a place where it's like we should be able to launch from that position. But the tactics are new, the manager's new. It's difficult, and we're used to, as Chelsea fans, new managers coming in and having a massive impact straight away. I don't remember the last time we had a Chelsea manager, in the previous era that came in and didn't at least have some kind of impact off the bat. It's only under this ownership that we've not seen that. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to manage expectations.
But then we've also got the Conference League this year, which is, I guess, I'm happy with it in the sense of it was kind of boring last year having midweeks that weren't filled with Chelsea football. It's not the competition that we want to be competing in, but there is news that's dropped last night that we have omitted 3 players from the squad. Obviously, you've got the A-list and you've got the B-list, and B-list players, I think, had to be born after January the something 2003. So there's some youngsters on there. There's no Cole Palmer, there's no Fofana, and there's no Lavia. And I'm seeing multiple different angles of approach here. And I think in terms of like the being rational, I can see what Chelsea have done, and I'm not thinking it's crazy. Do you think it's a good idea to be taking Palmer, Fofana, Lavia, 3 quite important players, I think, for Maresca, out of the Conference League squad? Do you think that we're belittling the competition by doing that? Or is this simply a case of load management for the players and it's a good thing for Chelsea?
You can't belittle a little competition. Like, it
wow.
It is what it is what it is. It is what it is. Who wants to win that? I mean, obviously, we're in it. So
I want to win that.
Well,
what do you mean, who wants to win that?
No,
I want to win that.
I want to win every competition that we're in, but if we win that Conference League at the end of the season, I'm not going to be running around going, "Oh yay, Conference League champions!" Like, I don't, it's ridiculous. So, here we go. So, I want to win every trophy win, of course. I appreciate that some people will be annoyed that we're not going to field our strongest 11 in those games, but it makes complete sense to me. I don't have any problem with it.
I agree. I think it's one of those where we've got such a big squad and people keep on barking on about how big of a squad we've got. Okay, sure. Show me then. And I think that's the difference I've seen. And it's why I kind of ignored the Servette defeat and I didn't take it too seriously. Because when you look at that 11 that started that game in the Conference League compared to what we've seen in the Premier League matches, as much as Chelsea have a big squad, there is a clear defining line between who's good enough to be a Premier League starter and what there is for the Conference League. And as much as I think it's not like a night and day, he's good, he's bad, he's A, he's B, it very much is still a young team, which I said I wasn't going to say as much this season, but like, let's call a spade a flipping spade. It's still a young team.
Can't lie about what it is.
No, the squad in the Conference League have an opportunity through those matches to show why they should be the first substitute that happens on Saturday or Sunday.
100%.
Or,
100%.
Like let's say Pedro Neto, for example, who, by the way, if you guys saw the run from Neto last night against Croatia, he ended up hitting the bar. He literally ran the length of the pitch. It was outrageous. I'll try and put some pictures or video on the screen for you. But these guys are injury prone. We've got loads of wingers, but like Neto's injury prone. I'm not sure how consistent the form of Madueke is going to be. Jadon Sancho, I mean, that guy's a walking question mark at Chelsea right now. Mudryk, like, there's so many players there that I think for Cole Palmer, he is absolutely the best player that we have at the club. He's absolutely the most important man to have fit at any given opportunity. And realistically, surely we've got to be beating all of the teams that we have in that Conference League group, even without Cole Palmer.
100%. 100%. And when you break it down as well, what are the most important competitions we're in order? It's the Premier League, the FA Cup, Carling Cup, whatever you want to call it, and the Conference League. So I expect to see those rotation players playing in the bottom two competitions, and I expect to see our best players in the Premier League and FA Cup. Then when you get into the Champions League, everything kind of scales down a little bit. So then you've got Champions League, Premier League, and then it'll be FA Cup, Carling Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever the F it's called these days. But, and that's the whole point. You have a massive squad so that you compete on 4 fronts. And the players that are doing well, like you just said, they will get boosted into those starting spots in the most important competitions, and the other ones will get relegated. But that's assuming that everyone's even fit, George. Because what's our biggest problem been? Aside from, young talent that's not experienced, it's been bloody injuries. So, if people can't understand the logic of this, then I don't know what to tell you, mate. You need your head checked.
I think Harry's already back with the head check comment, but I do agree. I think it's crazy to even consider that Chelsea will have to rely on Palmer in a group stage of the Conference League. Yeah, I think with European football, I might be wrong with this, and I'll put something on the screen if I am, but I think you get to select your squad for the group stages, and then for the knockouts, you basically get like a reselection after the January transfer window. That's what Football Manager's taught me over the years. So I think it would be a case of if Palmer, which right now the talk is that he's got muscle fatigue, He played a lot. Well, he didn't play that much for Gareth Southgate, but he had a big season last season. If you look at him, he's not the biggest guy. I think I saw a clip somewhere about how he was training in the gym and he was like, I'm a beast now. And then someone reminded him there was only like 10 kilograms either side of the barbell or something like that. So he's not the biggest guy. So I think in terms of that load management, it's good.
But yeah.
I think Christopher Nkunku is a big topic as well that we should discuss here because what do you think is happening with Nkunku? Because if I was to sit here and say to you, if you said to me even, who are the world-class players at Chelsea? I'd be like Cole Palmer and Christopher Nkunku right now. The rest are like, some of them are just below that level, and then some of them could be that level. But I'd say Nkunku is that guy. But why isn't he getting minutes from Maresca so far in the Premier League?
Well, just quickly on Palmer, that was his... People forget, because he was so good that was his first full season of professional Premier League football. So, his body's going to be adapting... insane what he's been able to do. So he will have been tired at the end of that. And it's so important that we don't get him injured moving forward. But with regards to Christopher Nkunku, similar to Romeo Lavia, he's another one that they've just been constantly injured. And it's about making sure that you build these guys up in the right way so they're not getting injured. The reason he's not played so far is because you look at the positions that he would play in the team. I like Palmer in that 10 position where I think Nkunku is at his best. The reason I like Palmer there so much is because Madueke, for me, I think he's going to be absolutely brilliant. For me, I honestly think he can be anything he wants in terms of that right wing, in terms of like the ceiling of his ability. Honestly, George, I look at the guy, I look at what he's doing, and I'm like, what's the difference between him and Salah at Roma if he can maintain what he's doing at the moment? I think he's that
I'm not
good.
even going to disagree with you.
I'm
not going to disagree with you. It's a big statement. I like it.
But how many players do you see with that pace, that dribbling ability? He can shoot with both feet. Honestly, I just think for him, it's just a case of just finding that form and just finding what works for him and maintaining it. I really think he's going to go all the way. I really do. If he can keep at it, because Maresca said it himself. Biggest problem with him is training. So hopefully he can stay at it and stay focused. It's going to be about having that elite mindset. But regardless, the reason for me that Nkunku's not playing is because of him. Because
I think you're spot on with that.
Well, Maresca loves his wingers as well. And I love wingers, bro. For me, this is so much fun. Remember when we used to have Robin and Duff and Joe Cole, and we had these proper wing players. It really reminds me of that period. I don't think since that period we've had so many top wingers at the club. So I'm loving it, mate. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, if you're going to play Nkunku, Palmer has to go and play on the right wing, which I don't have a problem with. I think, I know people say, he's more of an inside 10 player, but for me, he's still great on the right. But as I say, Madueke's so good right now, you cannot drop the guy. He doesn't really look like he plays, I don't think he ever plays left. I would think he could do it because he's two-footed, but I've never seen him do it, so doubt he can play left. And then you look at the left wing, and we've got Neto. I'm not even going to talk about Mudryk because he just shouldn't be in the conversation in terms of his performances. But we've also got Sancho and, João Felix as well. He can go in and play. If you want to change the tactics a bit, the left back's overlapping and then Felix tucks inside. There's different ways that we can play those wide positions. But I just think we've got so much versatility tactically in that final third now, and I'm really excited about it. But to answer your question, I think that Nkunku just got to wait for his moment. Someone's form will drop. Someone will get an injury. Something will happen. He'll come on and win a game, and he'll get his chances. The other position for him is Jackson. So I'm wondering what you think. Do you think he's a viable option as a striker?
Yes, I do. I think a lot of people right now are either very much in on Jackson or they're out on Jackson. And as much as it seems like I'm out on Jackson, I feel as though because I criticise him missing big chances, that people just think I despise the guy. Because I wanted Osimhen, I must hate Jackson. It's actually possible in football, to like two strikers at the same time. It's possible to love Nkunku and love Palmer, but realise that Palmer is better in the 10 right now than Nkunku, and that's why Nkunku's not playing. Great point from you, by the way. But I think with Jackson, he just does keep scoring goals. And I was seeing on social media the other day, and I'll ask you the same question now. Would you rather have a striker that has 30 big chances and scores 15, or has 50 big chances and scores 20? What would you say the answer to that question would be for you?
Well, I'm going to be really annoying because obviously, if you scale up the one who had the lesser chances, he's going to score more goals. So that's about the team playing better. So I would go for that striker because his shot conversion's better. So I would take him and put him in a Chelsea team that creates more chances. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then
And
I also think if that's the case, then you'd have. But then it's about, is Jackson better than Osimhen? Is Jackson better than Gyökeres? But Jackson is there right now.
Yeah.
So I think we just you have to back Nicholas Jackson. He does score goals. Yes, he misses a lot. And I'm just going to clarify this finally, because I've spoke about this a lot in the last week or so, but I feel as though people don't quite get where I'm at right now with Nicholas Jackson. If he keeps on missing lots of chances this season that equate to Chelsea not winning football matches and dropping loads of points, then I'm 100% in for buying a number 9 that comes in and takes his place straight away. No question. But for me, Jackson's all-round game is so good. And once these attackers start to play together more, once we get the best out of Neto, if we keep him fit, if Jadon Sancho comes in and starts to absolutely tick over, you've got Palmer there in the 10, Madueke on the right. I think for me, the key for Maresca this season, and I see this right now, and it's all dependent on injuries, in my opinion, but the right side of the pitch for Chelsea Football Club, to me, is outrageously good. If Reece James comes back and can stay fit, imagine him behind Madueke with Palmer in the 10 and Caicedo just having that midfield position his own, or Lavia, whoever it is. Look at the defensive stability that has. Look at the creativity that has. Palmer and Madueke, absolutely, I agree with what you say about Noni. I think this season for him could be the breakout year that Palmer had last year. And I think if you can keep those two playing together close to one another, we've already seen it against Wolves. Like, they just could not handle it. Yep. And I know it was kind of like maybe an outline situation where there's not many fullbacks in the league. Like Ait-Nouri, all he wants to do is attack. Like, this guy is like a dog with a piece of bacon hanging in front of his face. Like, he's going for it every flipping time. You're not going to get that every game. Hence what you saw from Palace last weekend. They just sit back and we don't know what to do with it. Same old story. But that right side, mate, I genuinely think if they stay fit, that's what you build the team around. Forget having like a spine and having this conventional old school, like, you know, it's same for Liverpool. I want to talk about Liverpool as well, because I think it's interesting to compare how Slot has come in and just slotted right in and won 3 in a row.
That's awful.
Whereas we're still like, it's not that bad, is it? We're still, a lot of us, on the fence with Maresca. But I think that right side for Chelsea, if it stays fit, is just phenomenal. But let's move on to that, I think. Let's move on to this Liverpool conversation, because they've made a great start to the season. But what do you think it is about Liverpool which allows a manager like Klopp, who's been such a success and has been literally like an era-defining manager for Liverpool, what makes it so easy for Arne Slot to come in there and not have this bleeding-in period that Chelsea managers have to have?
Well, it's a difficult one to answer, because there's been other squads that are experienced where a manager comes in and doesn't do that well, especially when there's been a long-term manager there. And look, we need to kind of assess him over a longer period than just a few games to know what's really going to be like. But he just seems very, very tactically astute, and I think he's inherited a squad that just get it. They know how to take on instructions. They know how to do things. And honestly, it might actually be quite nice for them to have a different vibe around the camp. Like, I reckon Klopp's pretty intense. You know, the gegenpress style is really, really high energy. And I think, you know, Slot's trying to focus more on possession from what I can see so far. And I think that, you know, and being more defensively sound as well. So I think that, you know, I think it's everything to do with the profile of players that they've bought and the fact that they've got players that have been in the squad for a long time. I just think that Liverpool have done their changeover planning very, very well. And with our owners, it's definitely felt a lot like every season there's a new plan, you know? And to have that stability for a long period now will be your opportunity to get ready for the next plan. And I always think about the way that City bought Guardiola in. You know, they bought in the directors of football and stuff from Barcelona before they got Guardiola from Bayern Munich, if I remember correctly. And they were bringing in experienced managers in that period and experienced players that were making them good enough to win things, but it was like they knew there was another level to go to. So I definitely think there is a way to do a handover that can actually improve you. Whether Slot's going to do better than Klopp, that remains to be seen. I'm not saying he will. I've got no idea, but I think it's all to do with the profile of players you've got. What do you think about that?
I think it's about the continuity of everything. Like, as much as Liverpool fans have had questions about their ownership and the transfer policy and whatnot, I think sometimes when you hit the nail for me, for Liverpool, where it's like just a change in the dressing room, like just having somebody come in with just something fresh, even if like Klopp is one of the best managers ever. I think he's one of the best managers ever, personally. For Chelsea, it's a bit different because you've got new manager, You've got new owners that keep changing the people above, like Chris Jurasek left the club yesterday. Like, all of this stuff, you don't want this to be coming into the conversation about your team and about your club just after the season starts. I don't know, because I'm not there at Cobham. I don't see what the upward, like, if you're not a footballer or a manager, how does all of this shifting and changing and owners coming in the dressing room, how does this actually impact the team?
Yeah.
But at Liverpool, like, they didn't make any signings apart from Chiesa, which I think is a brilliant signing, by the way. For the price that they paid for him, bargain, great opportunity. But I think for Chelsea, I'm hoping that as long as we can build this season positionally in the table from 6th to Champions League, like, we could probably do with the summer. Obviously, you've got Esteval and Kendry coming in next year. But we could also probably do with the summer where we don't just sign. But how many players are Chelsea away from having... And this, I think, is the big thing here. If we're talking about, I said the right side, if we can lock that right side in, then great. That's a building point. When you look at Liverpool, they've got a team there where they've got Alisson, they've got Van Dijk, they've had Trent and Robertson doing such amazing jobs in the fullback positions. The midfield could have done with some reinforcements, but it's still solid. And then look at that quality in attack. What do Chelsea need, in your opinion, to be in a position where the squad is at that level of quality? Like, how can we get to Liverpool levels?
I think literally all we need is time. And I know that might be optimistic, but like, and this is going to sound a bit mad.
No players.
Yes, but in time. So I'll explain. So, and you know, it's funny, and people will probably laugh at me when I say this, but what we're doing right now as a club reminds me of exactly how I play Football Manager. It's exactly how I play Football Manager. I'm not joking. No, literally. I'm going to tell you that, and I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I'm just kind of panicking a bit that, like, the game is being emulated in real life. But I always just buy all the best young players, and I'll buy like one good player for my team, and I'll just let them take the place of the better players. At the time, I just let them develop, and then I'll keep buying young players. By the time you've got that new batch of young players coming through, the ones that you bought before have now become actual bona fide first team players. And so I think what the reason I'm saying all we need is time is because the age of the players we've got right now, if they can stay together and form bonds over the next, like, let's say 3 seasons, by the time they've all started to hit that elite level, they'll be there like sort of mid-20s. And that's when you go, okay, this team's set. We haven't had to invest in it for a while. Now we can start spending lots of money on the next generation of young players. And they start coming through. They do their loan moves. They come and play number 2 to someone in the first team. Someone wants to leave. They come in and take their position. And you basically create like a conveyor belt of the best talent developing into your first team. And so I actually, in principle, think it's very, very exciting. Actually doing it in real life, because of all the intangibles, unknowns, is absolutely terrifying. But to answer your question...
I'm glad you've indicated it by saying that.
Yeah, it is. It's completely frightening. So I can't believe that's how it is, but that's why everyone's worried about what we're doing. It's like, this feels insane. This feels crazy because these are real people. This is not a video game where there's some predefined ability outcome that's going to happen at the end. We don't know what's going to happen with these guys. But to get to where Liverpool are, because we've bought all these young players, now we just need time. We need to let them develop. We need to let them get to those levels with the right manager, with the right coaches. And sprinkle little bits in here and there, because some of them, like we've always said, some of them are not going to be good enough. We already know that. So it's about letting the team evolve over a season, seeing who's doing what at the end of this year, and then going, right, that position needs to be improved so that player can be sold, and then we'll get someone better in, etc., etc. And just exactly what you said about Jackson before, he's got an opportunity here. He's got 6 months to a year to prove that he's going to develop again and keep hitting those markers to show that in the next few years he'll be a top striker. If he doesn't, then you have to bring someone else in to at least... Either you bring someone in to replace him or you bring someone in to compete with him. I don't think Mark Guew is that guy yet. Could be, but not sure. Yeah.
No.
But also, we need to... As I said, you need to remove the players that are no longer doing it in those positions. So you buy someone, you think they'll be it, and then they're not. So, which brings me on to the topic of Raheem Sterling. He's someone that we've finally managed to move on. And I, for one, George, am delighted. What do you think about it?
You say finally managed to move on. Like, can you define the moment where you gave up on Sterling at Chelsea? Because it's such a weird one, and I've got a weird feeling about this one. But what was the moment that you thought Sterling was done at Chelsea?
I think it was like 4 or 5 games into last season. Like maybe, I can't remember. I remember us sitting watching a game together. I think we were live streaming. And he ran into the defender, I think like 5 times in a row. And I was just like, what is this guy about? I just do not understand, because there was moments where he'd be given an assignment, like, this is what you're going to do today. And he would do it well. And he'd dribble and he'd run with the ball well and he'd score goals. And every now and again, he'd do like a ridiculous free kick or something strange like that. But just the most inconsistent player I've ever seen. There's clearly a good player in there, but I can't stomach watching him. I can't live with him in my team. So I'm glad he's gone.
But this is also, again, about seeing where Chelsea are at right now. I just think when Sterling does end up getting minutes for Arsenal, I just think he does so well. I think he will score goals. I think he will turn up in big moments. And why is that? I think I know why it is. I think it's because they're a very well-oiled engine. They've got fantastic players. They play so well together. And everybody in that team knows everything about where they should be, what the guy next to him is going to do, where he should be. And I think Sterling is one of those players. As much as like you watch him play and I'm like, football IQ, right? Like it's one of those things where like you could say you're smart, I could say I'm smart, and I'll be like, well, what's your IQ? And you'll be like, I don't know, I've not done a test. But like with Sterling, he's played for so many big clubs, so many amazing managers, scored so many goals, got tons of assists. But then like the moment that just reminds me of my annoyance with him was Christmas Eve. We're watching at Henry's house, remember? Wolves. Oh. And Cole Palmer is just chilling there. And Sterling is looking, he's like, and then he passes it to the goalie. But why won't he do that at Arsenal? I'm telling you now, this is a prediction from me. Yeah. Sterling won't ever do that at Arsenal. He won't ever make that mistake. Yeah. Why?
Well, my feeling about him is that, and you saw it when he was at Man City, I think he is someone who lives off the good things that other players do. He's not someone who will make things happen for himself or for other players. And in modern football, I just don't think you can afford to have a wing player who's a passenger like that, who lives on the outcomes of good team play. Like, especially with the way Maresca wants to play. Like Maresca said, I think Maresca meant it when he said, I like different types of wingers. He wants wingers that are going to go 1v1 against their man and create chances, finish chances, make runs off the ball, come back and work defensively. You know, I just see Sterling as like a sort of, what do you call it when you have like a striker that plays out wide? I don't remember. It's like an inside forward kind of role, but doesn't do anything else. But anyway, is it a Rhoda or whatever I don't know how you say it, but yeah, you know what I want about. Football Manager knows what I want about. But anyway, he's basically just like a wide player that wants to be a poacher. And that's how I view him. And when last season in particular, when we were really looking for someone to lead the team forward, have experience, and, you know, take the team to victories, he's just not that guy. So you're right, Arsenal's a well-oiled machine, and I'm sure there'll be moments when he comes on the pitch and he bags a winner. You know, I wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think the idea of seeing him and Kai Havertz link up to win Arsenal points just feels a bit odd. Like, there's so many things in the footballing world nowadays. Like, if you look at the Ballon d'Or list, like, I'm looking at some of those players, I'm like, how on earth is Artem Dovbyk one of the top 30 players in the world? Where did this bloke come from?
I don't know.
There's just so many things now. The older you get, I think, in football, like, I watched an amazing interview with John Motson and Brian Clough the other day. I'm like, this is like, when I was growing up and I fell in love with football, I watched like these old interviews from the television. I'm like, what is this sport nowadays? There's just so many things that we've experienced the older that we get that just make it seem different and just odd. But I think Sterling and Havertz, there will be moments where we'll be like, why did we just send this guy to Arsenal and still pay some of his flipping wages? But I get it. We've got too many wingers and he's not the guy for Chelsea. He's just not. I don't think there's anyone that people will say in the same breath, I don't want to send him to Arsenal, but I don't want him at Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? Like, we got to take our cake and eat it at this point. But what do you think, Harry, what do you think is a good season for Chelsea this year? And try and tell me like league positions, how do we win trophies? Like, what do we have to do and what do we have to see at the end of the season to be like, yep, cool, Maresca, next year, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. We have to win that B-Tech European League or C-Tech European League, whatever you want to call it, because like there's just no excuse not to. And if those guys that are playing in that competition don't want to get motivated and try and prove themselves in those games, then I want them to leave the club anyway. So I think that would be the issue there. Like just those players feeling disrespected and not putting in a shift. So I expect us to win that one. I expect us to not lose to a team below the top 6 in a knockout in a cup, because you know, I always think it's really hard to give an expectation. What if we draw City in like the quarters of the Carabao Cup or whatever? Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, well, that's fair enough. So it's really hard for me to say what round I expect us to get to, but I expect us to beat teams that I would look at and say on paper we're worse than them. And then if we can beat some of the other top sides, then great. So, you know, let's say quarterfinals for those knockout cups, quarters, semis, something around that. It'd be lovely to win a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup. That would be a really nice little, you know, cherry on the top of whatever this season's going to be. Could be a cherry on the top of a pile of dog shit, but you know, hopefully not. But and with the Premier League, look for what we've spent, what we're doing, what we want to do moving forward, and for these players to get paid what they want to get paid to be happy at the club. We need Champions League football. We have to get Champions League football in that sense. But from a pure like football sporting, I'm not going to say project thing. You know, I think that top six would make sense, but because of what we spent, because of the attacking talent we've got, we have to get top 4. Anything less than top 4 won't feel like we've done what we should have done. Do you agree with that?
I think you've made a very, very good point here, talking about players getting paid what they want to get paid. I think there's definitely a world where Chelsea miss out on Champions League again, and because of these wage incentives, players that will be the ones that turn up no matter what. Like last season, Cole Palmer. Honestly, this is going to sound crazy, but if Cole Palmer would have turned up in the summer and been like, look, I'm too good for this team, I want to go, no one would have been able to be like, no, you don't deserve that. You don't deserve to be playing in the Champions League, because he does. And I think we're at a position here where right now, attacking-wise, we're going to score loads of goals. Brilliant. Defensively, we're shoddy, and we're still a little bit unsure about how to beat low blocks and teams that are just going to camp in their defence. As a result of that, it would not be foolish to believe that where Chelsea are right now, which is win 1, draw 1, lose 1, if that continues throughout this season, you're going to be looking at some players like your Palmers, maybe your Noni Maduekes, who turn up at the end of this season, they look at their numbers and they're like, hang on a minute, like, I've agreed to this 60 grand a week thing based on the idea that we've spent £1 billion. We're going to get back into Champions League, but we're still not there. Then you start to lose your top players because they're not getting paid what they should be. They're not getting paid what they could be getting at any other team that's playing in the Champions League, even your flipping Galatasarays, your Portos, you know what I mean? And to think that Chelsea are still, I wish they were, to believe that we're still that club that players just want to be at because we're Chelsea, I don't think that exists anymore.
It's fading fast. It's fading fast, George. It's still there. It is still there,
yeah.
but it's fading quickly. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's definitely still there in the sense of we look at the players that we've brought in.
Yep.
We've managed to get Joao Felix to take a massive cut to join the club. Pedro Neto has come to Chelsea. I know he's probably getting more money than he got at Wolves.
Sancho as well coming in.
Sancho, that's a good example.
Straight away he mentioned Strobber and Lampard, but you know the further away we get from that era, the less chance we have of attracting players, you know, based on them.
Absolutely. But I think it is also important to discuss here that we've got to, even if we have a shit league season, right? Winning this BTEC European Cup gets us in the Europa League next year. So that's like, I'm not saying acceptable progress. I'm not saying that, but it's still progress in that sense.
Yeah.
Players want to be playing in the top competition, and that is the Champions League. We've got a Club World Cup at the end of this year as well. Like, that's looking fun. 32 teams there. I want to go there and flip and win it. I don't only want to go there and win it. I want to go there and do a massive vlog series again and absolutely make it killer. But overall, I think Chelsea this year, for me, it is top 4 or disappointment. I think top 4, and I like what you said about the cups because we drew Man City away, I think, in 2 cups in a recent season, and obviously we lost both. Yeah. So like that's unlucky. There is an element of it's the draw, or what's the draw going to be. I think for me it's top 4, not all bust, because I'm not going to sit here after 3 games and say if we don't get top 4, I want Maresca out. But like, there'd be serious changes that would have to happen with the way that we conduct business if we don't make it into the Champions League this year. And I think the biggest thing that would be because is players would want to start leaving. That's my prediction. If we don't get top 4.
And just a final point on that, on the wages thing, that's probably the reason the Osman deal didn't happen. I know that agent, we don't know the ins and outs of it, but like if you're just looking at the facts of the situation, you're trying to get him to take an incentive-based contract, but he's going to be thinking, I've already proven that I deserve this. I don't have to come to your club and show again that I deserve this. So other players in the team are going to start going, this isn't my fault that we're not getting to the level of football that I should be playing at, like Cole Palmer, for example. I can't sit on these wages much longer, and understandable. So, but he's just got a new contract, so the board have shown they will reward players that deserve it. So, we'll see what happens, mate.
Absolutely, and as long as they keep doing that, and I think it's about defining those lines between Palmer and Jackson. Yes, they score goals, got assists. Like, that's a quantifiable reason to go from 60 grand a week to 150 or whatever it is. Like, I get it, that's good. But like, also for defenders, midfielders, I'd love to see what that is. Is it performances? Is it appearances? Like, what does a midfielder or a centre-back or a left-back need to do to be seen in the same incentivized light? I think if you're a striker, you score goals, you get a pay rise. You're a creative midfielder, you get loads of assists, you get a pay rise. Like, it's obvious. But I would be very curious to see how this incentivized contract thing goes, and about like balancing that frustration that certain players might have by not seeing a wage rise. Does that lead to conflict? Does that lead to issues in the dressing room? Is it on the manager then to keep everyone together? Or like, how are we going to keep this talented group of players still improving but still happy, particularly when there's so much competition for places? That's what I find very, very interesting as this season goes on. Like, what are we going to do there's definitely a world, Harry, in my opinion, where this January, regardless of whether Jackson has scored 20 goals or not, I still think we go for Osimhen.
Possibly.
I think the club they just want him. I think they just want him to be a Chelsea player. So I think, and that's why I kind of wanted to compare us to Liverpool today, because they don't do any business, still look blistering. They do bring in Chiesa, yes, but that's where Chelsea need to be getting to. We need to be getting to a point where we can have a transfer ban, not sign anybody, but we're going to get better as a result.
Yeah, I think if Osimhen comes in, it needs to be for money that doesn't make him an automatic starter. Because how many times have we had that over the years where we overpay for someone, they have to be played as a result of it, and like there's all this pressure on them being, no matter what, the main striker. So I feel like it's really important that we get him for a fee that makes him part of a squad, but not a must start every game. Remember when we got Torres, mate? Like, it's just a great example. We couldn't play Drogba and Torres together. It didn't work, but we had to play Torres. So I don't want this to get into a situation like that again, where we have to play Osimhen and Jackson together because Jackson needs to develop and he deserves to play, but we can't. It just doesn't work. So, I think that's important.
I think we don't sign Osimhen and him not demand to start, if I'm being honest. But we'll see how that one goes. I think this has been a good conversation for the first pod back, Harry.
Yeah,
I think we should maybe wrap things up here. Have you got any final words before I give you a massive boxing plug at the end of this video?
It's been a triumph from return. No, mate, I've enjoyed this. I've missed talking about Chelsea with you, so I'm pleased to be back.
It's good. I think we're going to try and do this once a week. We're not going to set definitive times on it, because that's the moment where things just stop happening. If we miss one session, it's like, well, we missed one. Let's just wait and see. But this is obviously all also about what you guys want to hear from us in the comments. How do you want this to roll? Let us know your thoughts on things in the comments down below. And if you aren't yet subscribed to Harry's boxing channel, I know there's a lot of crossover between football and boxing, so it makes sense. A guy called Henry. You learn a lot. It's like a very deep, tactical, but also personality-driven show that Harry's doing over on his channel. So link is in the description. And we'll see you next week, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.